Hello and welcome to Pod Popper's Place. I'm Penny, and today I am hopping along with Kendra's card challenge number 14 and our super sponsor, Colorado Craft Company. Colorado Craft Company sent me this fabulous stamp and die set called Recharge, and it is perfect for these lazy days of summer. I had a wonderful time coloring these images off screen with my Copic colors, and I am going to stamp them once again by putting it in my stamping platform right up in the corner and using some VersaFine just to get a really good, nice and bold impression on top of my ink. I was having so much fun coloring the skies and the sunsets for these images that I didn't think about how much the images would be cut off with the dies. Of course, I could have stamped them directly onto a background and colored the skies and left them as is without cutting the dies out. But I got some beautiful color around all the edges of the die cuts, and so I will use those to my advantage. The papers I've been using for Kendra's card challenge number 14 don't quite work with this set of stamps, so I pulled out this Echo Park paper that I've had for a long time, and it's very beachy, so I thought it would be perfect with these stamps. And I'm going to do sketch number 4 for my first card, and I'm going to use a watercolor paper for my background. First, I want to get an idea where I need to paint my background. So I'm going to use some blues and greens for my water area. And with watercolors, you just kind of have to trust the process because it just looks kind of messy. I'm not an artist as far as painting goes. I love to play with watercolors, but I do not actually paint any images with them. They're more to just add color to backgrounds. And so as I'm just adding yellow for the sunsets, and then I add some different color oranges, and then I end up with some pinks. And so at first it gets a little bit messy. It looks like it's not going to come together, but it's just one of those things you just kind of have to keep working with it and playing with it. And watercolors are super forgiving, so I really appreciate that about them. With watercolors, if you get too dark of a color, you can just add a little bit more water and it'll help fade a little bit of that out. And then you can also add extra color if you need to because you don't have a dark enough. And they blend really well, which is really, really nice because I'm used to blending with alcohol markers, and so I really like that watercolors will do that also. And this is a metallic set, so it has a little bit of shine to it, which I really wanted, especially for the water. Because I am using quite a bit of water on here, one thing that I do recommend when working with any kind of water on paper crafts is to make sure you get it dry completely before you glue it down to something. I have had many projects ruined because I have been impatient and added water to things to either use in the embossing folders or used with paint or watercolors like this, and then I'm not allowed it to dry completely, and then it ends up being completely warping the card base that it gets on, and it's virtually impossible to fix that. So I've laid out the sketch, and I realized that middle pink piece is supposed to be on a layer, so I'm going to just use black because it's just a nice clean color and I don't want to add any other colors to it. There's already so much going on with all the different patterns. And I trimmed that down, and now I'm ready to put all my pieces in place. And the trick for this sketch number 4 is to lay that triangle piece down first and get that straight on the edge, and then you have everything else can just fall in next to that. By the way, today's hop is a giveaway hop, so there is a digital prize to win from At Cards by Kendra. So if you are interested in having a chance to win that prize, please be sure and fill out the prize form in the description box below. And there's also a playlist which will take you to all the videos in the hop, and I really like to watch the videos from the playlist because you can just set it to go and watch all of them right in a row, and it just keeps on going to the next one, so it makes it real easy to not have to search for anything. So after I get my last piece down here, I realized that the black strip was just a little bit short of where it was supposed to be, and so I'm going to fix that by trimming my my background down to 4 by 5 1/4 rather than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And so when I do that, I'm going to need an extra piece behind it. So I'm going to add a background of black layering to that. It's not exactly what the sketch calls for, but Kendra is really great about saying these are jump off points, and so you kind of fit it to how you need it. And I needed to do that since I made that little error. And I do use a lot of double-sided adhesive tape with watercolor paper. I just don't want to warp that at all. And I also lay heavy blocks on them to dry and make sure that they aren't warping as they dry. So it's really important with things that have any kind of water on it to make sure that they're not going to warp. And then my last idea here was to use StazOn ink for the sentiment and just put it directly on the paper, because I am going to send this in the mail, and so I didn't want to add any thickness to it. However, when I stamped it the second time, because the StazOn ink was kind of dry, it actually smeared just slightly, and you really can't see it there on camera, but it was bothering me, so I end up fixing that, and you'll see that at the end. So for my second card, I am going to use watercolors again, but this is some basic watercolor pastels, and I'm going to use the green, the yellowish, the kind of brownish orange, and the pink to once again kind of imitate the sky I had created in the original stamp. So in my last video, I asked if you use T rulers. So today's question is, do you use watercolors? Is it something that you like? Is it something you haven't tried? Or is it something you really want to try and just haven't gotten around to it? I don't use them a lot, but I really do like them. So I hope you give them a try and see if you can create something new that you haven't done before. So after I get a layer down, I wanted to be done because the paper was quite wet here, but I wasn't happy with how dark it was. The coloring was just a lot darker. So I went back over everything again with a second layer and a lot less water just to get a darker color for my background. And I did that with all 4 colors and tried to blend them together. It got a little bit streaky, but I think when it dried, it was just fine. And then actually I do go back to add more green and take it up a little bit higher, because this time I decided to use sketch number 1, and sketch number 1 has the image in the center of the card. So I didn't want the stamped image of the little cat in his hammock too far down on the paper. I wanted it more towards the center, so it was in line with what the sketch had. Off camera, I did use my heating tool to dry these watercolor backgrounds quite a bit, and then I also set a heavy block on them and stepped away for a while so that they could dry completely or mostly completely before I moved on to the next step. The 2 pieces of patterned paper for this sketch do have a layer, so I found that the easiest way to layer these is to actually put it on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 sheet and then trim those down. So after doing that with some black, I am just going to glue them onto my base, checking to make sure my paper is pretty much dry. And I use double-sided adhesive there again because I just don't want to create any more moisture on that paper and have it end up warping at all. And then I like the placement of my little kitty cat in his hammock. The green came up higher so that I could get that right in the center as the sketch shows. For the exterior of this card, I'm using the sentiment "Rest is good," and it tucks into that little bitty triangle area right on the bottom of the card, so it was a perfect fit. And then on the inside, I'm going to use the saying, enjoying the lazy days of summer, hope you are too, and that's on just some thinner cardstock for the inside of my card. I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. It would be greatly appreciated if you would consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up and watching all the videos in this hop. Please come again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.